No matter. Thank you for coming. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ginger Olszewski, and it's a pleasure to be here with you on this rainy afternoon, although I did see the sun peeking out, so that's a good thing. Welcome to our afternoon with Dr. Kathleen Corley. Locally, Dr. Corley is well known to students, families, community members, and her fellow educators as the charismatic principal of Red Cedar Elementary School in Bluffton. Today, we also welcome her as the author of the newly published book, The Magical Place We Call School, Creating a Safe Space for Learning and Happiness in a Challenging World. Kirkus Reviews praised the magical place we call school as an often encouraging, compassionate, and reasoned approach to running elementary schools. Dr. Bruce Marlowe, chair of the USCB Department of Education and our dear friend at the Conroy Center, wrote, "Well done, Dr. Corley, for writing such a wonderfully engaging, personal, positive, and sage book about what schools can and most definitely should be about." Lenore Skenazy, author of Free Range Kids, offered this endorsement. "Someday, a techie will invent a chip that can pre-install 40 years of classroom wisdom into every new teacher or principal. Until then, we've got Dr. Corley's book." Kathleen Corley is an award-winning educator and an authority on school culture. Renowned for her unique communication and management skills, she has a bachelor's degree in music education from the University of Illinois, a master's in music administration from Chicago Musical College, Roosevelt University, and a doctorate in educational administration from the University of Illinois. A native of Chicago, Dr. Corley began her career in education as an elementary music teacher and transitioned to education administration to make a wider impact upon student achievement and school culture. She entered the administrative ranks as an assistant principal in Palatine, Illinois, then became an elementary school principal in Lynchburg, Virginia, Salem, Massachusetts, and Bluffton, South Carolina. She was the founding principal at 3 of those schools and has been an educator for over 40 years. Corley has been an assistant professor at Salem State University and continues to mentor principals. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kathleen Corley.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here and very happy to see a couple of familiar faces, one former colleague and boss, and one current substitute teacher on occasion at Red Cedar, and that's really great. That discussion you were having about ditto machines made me jump forward to something that I sent my husband a couple of days ago. Just for giggles, I tried out ChatGPT and said, write me 500 words on the magical place we call school. Now, I wouldn't expect ChatGPT to know anything about the book, and in 10 seconds, it gave me 500 words, and they were awfully nice. The word heartwarming was in there, so I'm sold. It's all good. So the ChatGPT Merlins are wonderful as far as I'm concerned. And yes, I have used it as well when I'm writing a difficult letter to someone. Like the letter that I wrote to the parent who keeps saying, "You're not allowed to talk to my children about anything except for academics." So when they get in trouble, which is not often, they're great kids, but when they do something they shouldn't do, we're going to talk to them, and that's my right, and that's my obligation, and yes, I'm glad that you're nodding. I appreciate that. It's just the way it's supposed to be. So when an assistant principal calls Dad, "I told Dr. Corley, I don't want her doing that." And the assistant principal is kind of like, I'm sorry. So I've tried to explain it multiple times to this gentleman that I'm supposed to do this. So I asked for a nice letter via ChatGPT for this gentleman, and it was so explicit and so perfect. I haven't heard from him since. So I'm sold. Now, the only thing about it is I only do this with difficult letters, and then I redo them. But it always starts with, I hope this letter finds you well. No, actually, I don't care if it finds you well. You're much nicer than I am, ChatGPT. And now ChatGPT has learned, because I've done this 4 times, now ChatGPT says, I'm writing today. It skips the whole thing about I hope this finds you well. So it's learned something from me that I'm not as nice as it is. So here we are. I wish to talk about why I'm a principal in the first place. I love it. It's a calling, and no matter what happens, I wrote down a few of the things that would keep you from wanting to do this. New laws that don't seem to help us, book challenges, more tests, safety precautions, challenges that you couldn't possibly imagine, COVID, post-COVID, compliance refusals, pampered children, entitled parents, students living in trauma, fire drills, tornado drills, earthquake drills, soft lockdown drills, hold-in-place drills, hard lockdown drills, and presentations from outside agencies on good touch, bad touch for all grade levels, while some parents refuse to have their children included in those, which makes you wonder, right? But still, it's a beautiful place to be. And yes, it is magic, and I'm going to convince you of that, even if you're a non-believer so far. But I have a feeling that I have believers in the room already. So, you know that I've been at this for quite some time. 30 years as a principal, 36 years in administration, because there were some other jobs in there, including AP. And 44 years in education. And I learn something new all the time, especially from millennials. The book itself, why write this book? Public perceptions, mostly. There are folks who, well, let's just go to that. You blew off Meet the Teacher, you skipped parent-teacher conferences, you said no to the PTO, you've never seen your child's classroom, but you want parental control. You might want to try parental involvement first. It seems that the person who has rocks to throw at us most often, or think they ought to, that they ought to be stopping by the rock store to pick up the rocks, to do something with them because it's their obligation to do it, really don't know what we do in schools. And while they're looking to have more to say about what we teach and how we teach and when we teach and where we teach and all the rest of it, and rewrite history at sometimes as well, they just don't know what we do. And I'll spend most of my time talking about that. Writing the book itself was interesting. I have hundreds of stories that I bore my friends and colleagues with. And APs, especially assistant principals, because they're groveling, they're sucking up. That's just who they are. They come to us and they want to learn things, and they're going, she's going to start a story again. And just I don't ask questions because it'll just make it longer. So there are these friends that we have who live in Richmond, Virginia, Powhatan County, actually. And they are geniuses, and they had a software company that it was called PI, Plan, Invest, Enjoy. And you wouldn't know them because they sold their software to investment companies, mostly gigantic ones. And at some point in time or another, they sold the company for lots and lots and lots and lots of zeros. And even before that, they were philanthropists. But now they are philanthropists in a big way. So one of the first things they did was they gave every teacher in Powhatan County $1,000. And they've continued doing that ever since. And they are the people who say, tell us more stories, Kathy. Oh my gosh. And then they say, you really need to write a book. So they sponsored and supported this book, and I'm eternally grateful to those people for doing what they do. The cover, this is a painting that we have in our house. It's a gigantic painting. In this room, it would overwhelm it. There isn't a wall that's big enough for it. It's a very giant painting. And when we were building a house, we were on our way to Hawaii for something or other, and we were in San Francisco, and this painting was on the wall, and it's by Giuglioli, an Italian painter, who used to just do things in sepia tones, just like that. And they were all deep and dark, and they were collages. And then later in life, they were in their 40s, and they had a child. And he started seeing things through his child's eyes. So this is the Colosseum being rebuilt with children's blocks, which to me speaks volumes, because that's what we do in education. No matter what is out there, we're preparing children to go do whatever it is they're going to do to improve whatever has happened before them. So this painting, I thought, would be perfect for the cover of the book. And there's a little bit of a story about the author and such in the book. So that seemed to be perfect. The person who did this book with me, Glenn Plaskin, he does ghostwriting and he does some other things too. But if you consider him an invasive editor, maybe? Yeah. Glenn has interviewed, think of anyone in the 70s who was important, and Glenn interviewed them. Frank Sinatra, yes. Donald Trump, yes. The Playboy interview in Donald Trump, that was Glenn's. He wrote for Vanity Fair. He wrote for the New Yorker, all kinds of places. So he knows nothing about nothing when it comes to schools. So when I'd write a chapter or just write a piece, he'd say, and sometimes he's typing in all caps, which I really have a problem with, especially since he's an editor. You can't mean that I'm supposed to believe that you baked a pie for a family to buy them off. No, I wasn't buying them off. I was trying to relate to them because it's a grandma and a great-grandma who are handling all of the children in this family, including the children of the daughter who died in childbirth, who I met when she was a third grader at Bluffton Elementary School. These folks are not built for teaching children at home during a pandemic via Zoom. They don't even have Wi-Fi, and we need to make sure that they had Wi-Fi. So we're making sure that everything was happening the way it happened, the way it needed to happen, while they were thinking, I didn't sign on for this. They have 3 daughters worth of children there, while the daughters, 2 of them, are doing something else, and we're trying to make sure everything is going to work for this family. The story's in the book. But he said, I can't believe, there is no way that you, yes, Glenn, yes. And I sent him a picture of great-grandma and me standing next to each other wearing our masks with me handing her the pie. And the reason that the pie thing was all about the fact that our literacy coach, who's an angel, said, well, we just need to sweeten great-grandma up, now don't we? What does she like? And Grandma said, what? And what does she like? Well, she likes red velvet cake and apple pie. And I said, I've got the apple pie. And Kelly had the red velvet cake, and that's what happened later. You want to consider it a bribe? Consider it a bribe. But it worked really well, and we've been happily ever after ever since. They've been in on it. So why the book? Forget jury duty. Everyone should have to substitute teach. True? Yes. True. Yes, absolutely true. People just don't understand. They don't know what goes on in schools unless they hang out there. Some parents, some very savvy parents, are right there. And they are so savvy that there's one team, our 5th grade team has parents who buy them lunch, who bring them lunch every other week. Now, they are up on their bribery game, the 5th grade teachers are. But that also says something, because probably the best thing you can do for teachers and administrators is compliment them, especially children compliments, especially if they're written. Next to that would be food, probably. And anything else comes much after that. But just the fact, you get me, you get what I'm trying to do. I have a problem with the parents who get aggravated when their child's teacher becomes pregnant. There was a mom this summer. It's at just before summer starts. We do a reveal of who's in which class, and we call it Taco Palooza. And it's at the same time that we have to talk about Read to Succeed, and have them sign something that says that they've been there, and then we hand them a plate. You don't get a plate to listen to us talk about Read to Succeed, and then you have as many tacos as you'd like. But there's also the reveal. Well, the mom came up to the teacher, her child's name is listed on that roster, and she comes up to the teacher and she sees that she's pregnant. She goes, what's this? Bloating? What do you think it is? Oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. So I'm trying to step into that, and she's new to the school, and she came from private school, and there's a thing that she has in her head about, I want what I want when I want it, and I always get what I want when I ask for it. Mm-hmm. So, ironically, we have a couple of people who are related in the building. Ironically, the person she went to talk to about getting her child switched out of that class, because that was a deal breaker as far as she was concerned, was the office manager. The office manager is the grandmother of that child who is now born. Like, oh, really? Well, I'll talk to Dr. Corley about that. Basically because she wanted to wring the woman's neck at that moment in time. But it's interesting how some things just don't seem to apply when it's your child in that class. And I remember saying to a mom in Salem when she did the same thing, like, well, and how long will she be gone? I don't know. That's up to her. It's an FMLA thing, and that's a FERPA, and I don't know. It's not for me to know. Well, I need to know. I'm not sure why you need to know. It's okay. It's okay. You won't have to stay after. So this mom said, well, this is his kindergarten year. His name was Leo Giovacchini. And that mom was used to getting what she wanted when she wanted. And she said, I just don't understand. I said, who scrutinized your pregnancies? And she said, well, I'm not a teacher. Who scrutinized your pregnancies? Well, nobody did. I said, well, that's the standard we're using. In other words, you don't have the right to do that. But it's interesting how some lines are crossed. Some filters are not there. I'm not sure that lady came with a filter, so I may be asking for something that I shouldn't be asking for. Learning to be a good principal in just 40 years. Those first few years, oh my gosh, the mistakes made. But you learn from each one of them. One of the things that I tell assistant principals or new principals, beware of the first 5 people who come to see you once you get the principalship, because they're going to ask you to do something that they asked the person before you who said no for really good reasons. And then I tell an imaginary story. For example, secretary's sitting outside your office and the music teacher comes in and he's all bubbly about all he needs is $200 and approval to do the play that he wrote. And it's a musical and it's going to be great. And he walks out dancing on a cloud. Secretary comes in and goes, you did not tell him yes. Well, yeah, like all he needed was $200 and it's already in the budget and he just needed my approval. Did he tell you about the nude scenes? Obviously, this is an imaginary story, and I'm making it as absurd as possible. But they're not always that absurd. Superintendent, one of many, I think I counted 21 superintendents. They don't have a long shelf life. I think it's 2.6 years is the national average. So been through lots of superintendents, some really great ones, some not quite so much. On the not quite so much one, this guy, he agreed to midnight basketball in our schools. And ours was an elementary school, and it doesn't have lockouts. If you think of the difference between high schools and elementary schools, high schools, of course, are giant, and they have gates and cages and lockouts, so you can't get to the classrooms. You can only get to the gym. Well, that's not the way ours are set up. So you kind of have to babysit the place, and I'm not interested in hearing basketballs bounce at 1 o'clock in the morning and that I'm babysitting the building. So someone eventually talked him out of it. So that was the only way we could make that happen. My look at leadership is assisting teachers in doing what they need to do. I tell them, don't ever discount something like the play that you wrote and you only need $200 for. I will scrutinize it very carefully, but don't say, I can't do this, I'm not going to bother to ask because you think we don't have the time or the money or you can't get me to say yes. You may be right on all three accounts, but at least ask, and I will do everything I can to make it happen. When I say no, I try to do something in between, and that to supply something instead. And that goes for the people I supervise, and it also goes for the people at district office. When I'm saying, I would like this thing to happen. Here's how I think you can make it happen and not be exposed to have everybody in the city wanting the same thing or demanding the same thing. I think your exposure to this will be rather small. A good example of that is, it's a little complicated, but a fourth grade teacher left at the beginning of the year this year, and a fifth grade teacher left at the beginning of the year this year. They're both on leaves, so we couldn't replace them because they are entitled to those jobs. As it turned out, neither came back to those jobs, but we didn't know that was going to happen. So we had substitutes, and the substitutes were fine, but it's at the very beginning of the year, and we kind of have a Red Cedar way about us, and it's hard to inculcate that with substitutes because they're just making sure the walls don't fall down and trying to keep things running as much as possible. You can't really ask for more than that from subs. So the subs were there in both grade levels, and the teachers were edgy about it, and I was edgy about it, and eventually, same day, both teams came separately to say, we just need to absorb the kids. We just need to take the kids into our classes. Now, there's a way that the district pays for that. So if you're a high school teacher and you take on a class during your prep, then you're going to be compensated for that. And we've done that since COVID. It's not something that we can probably continue doing. If Alice Walton is listening, I understand completely. So the rules have gotten tighter on it because you could see that there would be misuse of this kind of thing. Turning in a timesheet for 10 minutes. Stop it. Just stop it. Go work retail. Don't do that. That's not nice. Anyway, so these folks are not taking a class. That is, they're not taking a class for a day. It's not like taking a biology class during your prep. You're taking on everything that goes along with this. As you know, that's parent-teacher conferences, that's IEP meetings, that's suggesting that a child be tested, everything that goes along with it, all the behavior, everything else. And it required our gifted and talented teachers from those grades who had no homerooms to have homerooms and still do their gifted and talented thing, which has to do with some testing. And we also do a whole class thing at kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, not GT appropriate, not GT tested grades, because we grow our own GT students, like expose everybody as much as possible to gifted and talented curriculum, because gifted and giftedness and talentedness is where you least expect it sometimes. And we have lots and lots and lots of students whose first language is Spanish, about 45%. So you do it in a word dependent way in the beginning. It's more about ideas than anything else. So they're doing all of that. Well, they didn't qualify for the pay because of Quirk, because of the way the rules were written. So that was a problem. And actually they weren't going to do the pay starting at the beginning of this year. That was the decree. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Okay. So I had talked to Mrs. Walton, head of HR, at the beginning of this leadership meeting and said, hey, this is what they're going to do. They've taken in the kids. They're not asking for anything, are they? Nope, they're not asking for anything. At this very meeting, 2 hours later, Mrs. Walton passed out a piece of paper that said, yes, we are going to do this. We are going to pay. And I'm looking for, okay, no, doesn't fit there, doesn't fit there. Oh my God, no, this can't be happening. We just talked a little while ago, and she said, yeah, you said they weren't asking for anything. Now they're gonna, because it's right here, and everybody's going to get this piece of paper, but they don't qualify. She said, well, we'll need to talk about it. Okay, so we talked, and I gave her a scenario about how I thought it should work, and she said, it's not covered in the policy. I think it should be. We'll continue to talk. So a little while later, 4th grade teacher comes to me and she says, if Mrs. Walton would come here and talk to us, and if she still says no, seeing our pitiful faces, I'm going to be okay with it. Do you think you could get her to come? Yes, I'm sure I can get her to come. So she and Reggie came, and they listened. And at the end of it, Mrs. Walton turned to me and said, Dr. Corley, you need to write a proposal for this to work under the guidelines that are here. Well, this does not help because I've already been through this. I've turned the paper upside down and I've done everything I can to try to figure out how it would work. It's not going to work. And then epiphany. I called her the next day and said, your policy could not have anticipated the largesse of these teachers. You couldn't possibly have thought that somebody would do this thing. And she said, well, I don't think I like where you're going with this. I said, it's not a slam. And if you're thinking about your exposure for later on, what of it? Who else is going to do this? How many other schools are going to do this? I'll get back to you. Next time she got back to me and said, send me a spreadsheet for every day that they have done this. And we got what we needed, which was pretty cool, especially the day when they came by when 3 of us were meeting, 2 admins and Kelly. And it was a payday when you get your pay advice. And I had forgotten when this was going to hit. And I didn't tell them that we got it because I wasn't going to say it. And it's like you don't ask a woman if she's pregnant until you see the baby born, right? Right? It's just like that. You want to make absolutely sure. So one of the teachers came in, the most aggressive of them. Is this ours? I mean, like she's holding up her computer, I mean, she's not actually showing me the numbers, but is this, oh, yeah. Do we have to give this back? I mean, this seems wrong. This seems, and I said, oh, that's, remember when we had the meeting and then, I sent a spreadsheet and and then she turned around, yes, it's ours. We get to keep it. So it's, the little rainbows and things, but I will do just about anything to make sure that good teachers get exactly what they need. And that's what needs to happen. If any of you teacher folks have worked in a circumstance where you said, no, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, this is the way this needs to go because this is policy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then your principal comes in and goes, yeah, we can't do that. You're cut off at the knees. So what do you do the next time? I don't know. Go talk to the principal. Because that's how it has to go. But you have to be able to work as a team. Those are the things you pick up over the years. What is my worth to them? Sometimes my worth is cleaning up a spill. Sometimes my worth is keeping the construction cones out of people's way. So construction cones can be me, can be rules, can be difficult parents, can be a really hard to deal with child. But we'll get to the part about they always have their reasons. So I know that I have a purpose in supporting what teachers do, but nothing good happens in the principal's office. It's always in the classrooms. That's just about perfect. When I have what I think is a great idea about something, and there's some things in the book about that, I want to have a thing called Just My Imagination. And it's something like the Princess Tea at Disney, but what's the percent of the population that can afford and wants to go, et cetera, to pretend that they're princesses. Not that it's just about the princess part of it. There needs to be, baseball players and everything else. So Just My Imagination, in my imagining, would be a couple of different worlds. You could be part of the comics, the heroes and villains world, or you could be part of the Princess Tea world, or you could be part of the spaceship world. And what was the other? Oh, it's pirates. Arg. Yes. Okay. So I went to the people who I thought would want to play, the teachers. Nobody's going to get paid for this. Has nothing to do with any remuneration. Hey, I had this idea, and I had every one of these planned out in my head. Didn't say that. Said, what would you do with that if you could? Oh, I do this. I do this kind of world. The music teacher, Benji Morgan at the time. Oh, I would do heroes and villains. And he had a friend who was at SCAD who was doing costume design at the time, and they were making all of their costumes out of men's shirts and shorts and pants and whatever it was they had. So that night, that was set up in the middle of the building, and you came to tell the two people who were working there what you wanted as your costume. And he made it for, and that part alone, the kids are going, I think the sleeves should be just a little bit shorter because I'm going to be directing. And okay. And they just sewed them all up and they put them together. But if I would have said, this should happen, and this should happen, and this should happen, and this should happen, and no, I want this, and I want this. What you could, no. If I was one of the people who was asked to do it, I'd go, oh, it's really creative on your part. What do I get to do? I'm a minion. I'm a robot. No, they were so bought into this. It was a wonderful evening. We asked maintenance if we could borrow scaffolding because we had to have a castle, and we wrapped it in paper, and yes, we climbed, and the Rapunzel kind of sort of thing. But you have to have a spark. The secretary and I made whatever food it was they wanted, space food. And remember fizzies? Anybody remember fizzies? Yeah. You could get fizzies about 8 years ago. You can't get them now. For those of you younger in the crowd, they're like Alka-Seltzer, but they taste kind of cool. It's like fizzy Kool-Aid, and you put them in there. Except for Mike Grucke, who lived next door to me, put one on his tongue. That was really dumb. Yeah, you don't do that. But they're in little foil packages, and I was able to get blue ones for all the astronauts. And because they have no idea, and their parents have no idea what those things are. Those kinds of things get us from one thing to the next. No matter how hard, all those things that I was talking about, the hard lockdown and soft lockdown and all the rest of that, yeah, okay, fine. But this is fun, and we have a good time. And when you drive home that day, you say, we did really good things. We did really good things. And the students are happy, and the teachers are happy, and the parents are happy. In that order is how it should be. I love this quote. A leader takes people where they want to go. A great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. And that's the part about testing and data and all of the rest of those things that sometimes we don't think are fun, except for I'm a major data geek, And there are a couple of others of us who like to talk data, not to the teachers so much, but to each other, and try to figure out what we can do better to support teachers. It's not about now we have to do really well on this test, and if we don't do well on this test, it's a problem. We don't discuss that. We have been fortunate to have come through COVID with some good planning and good work during COVID, where we are better than we were before we entered COVID. And we're in a strange place when it comes to that, because that didn't really happen. But during COVID, when we couldn't find people, we went through extraordinary means to find them, because some people just dropped off the map. And in some cases, there was a family with 4 children, and we couldn't get a hold of them. And the first grader was at risk of being retained. And finally, after trying to find them, we put a note on the door where they used to live, but they weren't there anymore, that said, we really need to talk to you. I mean, in an envelope, not for everybody to see. We really need to talk to you because Andre might have to be retained. Okay, got their attention. They had lost the apartment, they had lost the car, they had lost both of their jobs, and they were living in their car. And they hadn't told anybody. They did a Zoom from their car. Mom thought that was pretty cool, the Zoom part. Like, well, this is really great. I can see people. I can talk to you. And we don't have to go there because we can't afford the gas to get to you. So we were able to do the things that we needed to do to support them. And yes, there are things in place for us to access with our social worker and our counselor. But because of those things, the folks who didn't have Wi-Fi, we were able to get them hooked up with, like if they had Wi-Fi and they lost it because they couldn't afford it anymore, we could pay a little bit and get Hargray to go along with us on that. And then there were hotspots that the school district had and hotspots that the state had. But if you're not paying attention to those things, you have no idea that there are those needs. I live just off 278 in Bluffton, and there are those higher end places that are there, right? About 3 miles from there are people who get their electricity from one orange cord connected to another orange cord connected to another orange cord, and many of them come to our school and to Michael C. Riley. And on the island, on Hilton Head Island, it's the same thing. Lots of people think Hilton Head, oh, that's high end. No, not really. Not some of the places who need us the most. So we're pretty careful about making sure we're addressing everyone's needs as much as we know that they're there. And we try to communicate without violating anybody's privacy what it is that folks need. School culture, I don't think was considered as important as it really is. All of you know that when you walk into a school, within the first 5 minutes or so, you get a feel for what that school is like. People who substitute teach know that in a big way, because there are some that you cross off your list, and there are some that you say you want to come back to. If it's your child's school, you're not crossing it off the list. You want it to be the best it can be. So it feels good, it sounds good, it smells good, it looks good, it's clean. All of those things are important. And it's your brand. It's who you are. The schools years ago didn't think much of branding. I've told younger principals, if you don't put your flag in the ground about who you are early on for everybody to know, someday 3 children are going to get sick on spoiled milk, and you will forever be the spoiled milk school, whether you like it or not, because you gave them no other narrative. It's like, that's the school. That's the school that does the really cool plays, and they have a 5K every year, and the kids get to run for free if they go to the school, and everybody else just pays $10, and then they give them money to charity. Yeah, no, they do this, and they do this, and they do this, and their Maker Fair in March is awesome. I was there to present to them. You should be known for many other things. And if you just let it sort of tumble however it's going to tumble and let somebody else tell your story, whatever you did wrong, wherever, it's going to come up, even if you did nothing wrong. But if there's spoiled milk, you own it, and you're going to have to do something with it. You can talk to the folks in food service about it, but you own it all. It's the Harry Truman thing. The buck stops here. I know I'm going way back in my references. I apologize. But who doesn't like a good Harry Truman reference every now and again? School culture is all about what the teachers contribute. The teachers who have a pad next to their bed at night, so when they have a good idea when they wake up in the middle of the night, yay for you! Yes, congratulations. Because you don't want to lose it, even if it was the weirdest dream you've ever had, and go, oh, I could probably not do that. I don't know what I meant about that, but we'll see if we can make a good idea about it. Or now, more likely, millennials would make recordings of them. Yeah. But whatever is going to work for you. And then they should appear in the principal's office the next day and say, I had this idea. I would really like to do this. And that's where the sparks are. And sometimes that's what students do as well. There was a time when probably 3 tragedies in a row somewhere else in the world, we sent water, we collected water and sent it somewhere. And by the 4th one, a first grader stopped by my office and he said, well, we know what we need to do. We need to start collecting water. And when we did it once and from then on, when we did it once at Blufftonelle, I asked the students to write notes. And it was for troops in Afghanistan. Write notes, whatever it is you want, if you just want to draw a picture, just something that will make somebody smile. And this lieutenant colonel just got stateside, and he called me about 2 months later, and he said, I hope I have the right school. Did you send water with notes on it to wherever it was that we had sent it? And I said, yes, we did. He said, it's the weirdest thing. It wasn't the company I was with. We got split up. There were 5 of us. We walked all night. When I got to this outpost, they said, there's some water over there. There's some food over there. There were no lights. I just grabbed 3 of the waters, and I drank 1, and the other 2 were still on my chest when I woke up in the morning. And I didn't know until then that they had notes on them. And I can't tell you how important that was for me to look at those notes. Your kids are awesome. Please make sure you tell them how much I appreciated that. One soldier. Bet there were more, but he's the one who talked to us about it. And you bet I told them. You bet I told the teachers. And so that's when Donovan said, well, it's time for more water. We need to start collecting the water. Let's get busy. And his little brother said the same thing a couple of years later when he was in kindergarten. Behaviors. Kids do every single thing for a reason. Sometimes, and I'll say it like, he would set himself on fire if he thought that's what he needed to do. He has done everything he can to get his parents' attention because there's something that's wrong. And someone in our organization, needs to figure out what it is. We need to figure out what the problem is, how we can best address it, whether mom and dad want to tell us about it or not. And I have said before, and sometimes it angers parents, but I'll say, he's our client. You're not, no offense, you're support personnel, just like I am. I'm farther away from the issue than you are. But you're going to help or you're not going to help. But he needs something. I'm not positive what it is. But as a team, we will do whatever it is you want us to do. Yeah, well, you have no business knowing about this. Fine. How is he going to be helped? Rhetorical question. You don't have to answer me. You owe me nothing. But you owe him something. And there's something not quite right here. When you have a child who is unnaturally huggy with people he hardly knows, that tells you something. When you have a child who keeps making excuses, especially third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade sort of age, to go home, and there's nothing wrong with him, sometimes he's worried about mom because the drug dealer is coming today, or the ex-husband is coming today. There's a boy in the book, family's still around. His deal was beating up a child at the bus stop, and his mother was all over me about, and you are not going to suspend him.
Really?
I'm pretty sure I am. Yeah. Her grandmother was her support person. Her mother was unavailable. So this is a woman who's maybe 30 or so. And I could read it right away. She felt guilty about why he was doing what he was doing because it was her thing. He was angry from the day before. Well, I'm getting nowhere in this meeting with her and Grandma. Grandma's giving me the looks like, yeah, I know. You got to do what you got to do. And so I handed it off to the AP. APs are good for that. And I said, I'm going to go talk to your son. And when I talked to him, he had his head in his hands, and he talked to me like an adult. He talked to me as though he was an adult. I said, you got to tell me what's going on here. This is not you. He's a very bright, nice kid, but his family was upside down most of the time. And he said, I don't understand. I just don't understand. She hates him. He beat her. He's in jail, and she's going to take him back. I don't get it. I just don't understand. She's on the phone with him, and now he's imitating her. Oh, yeah, sure. It's no problem. Yeah, I'll come get you. And I'm standing there like, you're going to do what? We were so happy while he was in jail. Why in the world would you do this? And he said, I couldn't say all that because, I'd probably get hurt. But what do you do? He's saying to me. And I said, you can't account for somebody loving somebody. Whether it's your mom or anybody else, no matter what it is that they did, you can't decide they're wrong because it's not a logical thing. Because what you're saying, everything you're saying is right. He has no business being in your house. And let's talk about what you can do. Here's the number for DSS, and here's the number for the police, and here's the number for all of those things. But somehow you have to work through your anger about what it is that mom is deciding. Because this isn't your decision, it's not my decision. I could go in there right now and tell her how wrong she is. How would that work? I don't know. I said, I think you do know. How did it work for you? You're closer to her than I am. I can tell her, like, as her mother, her grandmother, or whatever, no, don't do this to your kids. And I probably will try to do that, but I don't think it's going to work. And he just kind of, put his head down. 2 years later, I have never had somebody from the middle school. I was at Bluffton L, and right across the parking lot is the Kraken Middle School. I had never had somebody from the middle school call me and say, we have a boy here who wants to talk to you. And he didn't really talk. We sat in the room. We parallel played. We sat in the room with each other. I said, do you want to say something? No. Something go wrong today? Yeah. Are we just delaying what went wrong? Like the consequence? I already know what the consequence is. And I wanted to say, why am I here? But I was afraid to. So I never said, why am I here? I think I know why I was there. I don't know that I helped anything. But he cried. I cried. We hugged. That you have to face whatever the thing is. Mm-hmm. Want to tell me what the thing is? Mm-mm. Want me to ask them? Mm-mm. Okay. I didn't. I don't know to this day what it was that he did. But he's a product of his environment, and he's just trying to survive. It's one thing to have a traumatic experience, but every day you go back to the trauma. That's hard. That has to be really hard. And we're asking that weight to be put on children's shoulders without a whole lot of support. So that's why we become trauma-informed schools, and we try to assist in those ways. We can't do everything, but we can do some things. Behavior since COVID. Wow. It's fascinating. There are things that kindergartners do, like some of them go into the bathroom, especially girls, go into the stall, lock the door, and crawl out underneath. Kindergartners. And took me a little while to get this, but you can figure out who did it because they're the ones who come to tell you. Dr. Corley, the stalls are locked. Oh, thank you so much for telling. Thank you so much for telling me. No, stupid. Thank you. Go back to class. That's what I needed to say. But I said, oh, thank you so much. It takes 40 years. You have to figure it out. But now it's second graders who do that. Know why? Because the kindergartners couldn't lock the stalls at their house. Because that's where they were during COVID. This is the years are off now, but our fourth graders are a piece of work. They're doing second grader things, and we had to tighten the screws. We did interviews with all 100 fourth graders to ask them how things were going, and it was funny what their answers were. These teachers, people say they're nice, but we haven't really seen it. Yeah, because you're acting like fools and you're making it so they can't teach. These were not the fourth graders we ordered. These are not the fourth graders we would expect. These are not the fourth graders we had in the past. But there were things that kindergarten and first grade teachers, they are awesome people. They get finished with some of this stuff, like I want a ball, Carmen wants the ball, she gets the ball, I slander her. Or I grab, if we're boys, we'll just grab at each other and it'll be done with. And then we want to play? Yeah, I want to play. But girls, it's a whole different thing. Yeah, well, you're mom and whatever. That stuff gets handled in kindergarten and first grade. It gets settled. Like, whoa, that's not how we treat friends. And I'm waiting for the day where the girl goes, that's how I do it. But it gets all calmed down. Well, that stuff didn't get handled when it needed to get handled. So now it's popping up. I'm amassing a list of, I have maybe 45 things that are sentence starters because children don't know how to talk to each other. Instead of us talking to each other like, what's your favorite movie? Or did you see what happened at the fire station? They had this really cool truck and nope, we don't know how to do that. Instead, I go, do you remember when Carmen fell? It was like a year ago. Did you total face plant? That was so funny. And now she's going, what? I'm going to live this down for the rest of my life? That's what they do. And our behavior management guy, Mr. Rodriguez, coaches baseball in high school. And he says, those guys are the same way because they have their heads in their phones and they'll say whatever it is they want to say in a group chat. And that keeps happening too. I laugh at the parents who come in and they have a transcript of the chat that's on their kids' phones, not on our laptops, because you can't, on their phones. And I was like, it's, what is that meme with, I'm not going to think of his name. The first Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
Gene Wilder. Oh, how interesting. Tell me more about these phone chats. I mean, that's what I want to say. And I have the hat, so I could wear the hat. They wouldn't respect me so much. They want us to solve the problem because it's all kids who go to our school, and it doesn't happen during school. We sit next to each other every day, and at night, I call her the B word in a group chat. And she calls me worse. And then we go, hey, hi, you want to have lunch together? Yeah, sure. What? This doesn't make any sense. But they're doing these vile, disgusting things, including inappropriate pictures because there are no parental controls on the phone. And you want me to help you with the device you bought for your child that the American Pediatrics Association says you shouldn't get until they're in 8th grade. Are we clear on that? Yeah, well, everybody has, yeah, they do, don't they? I'm thinking, if everybody had a handgun, would you? No, don't ask those questions. And we say, yes, we will help you, but there are ways around this. Parental controls, getting rid of the phone. The phone is like the evil empire because so many things can come through those phones. There's a thing that I say to parents when they come to after school sorts of things. Thank you so much for being here. There are lots of places you could be tonight, but you chose to be here with your children. Please continue to do that as they go to middle school and high school because you want your voice as much in their heads as all those other voices are in their heads because they're more like free-range chickens then, and they have other interests and they can get involved in things that you might need to be the antidote for. And people will repeat that to me on occasion. I'll even go further to say, and when you are a grandparent and you're on the phone and your daughter says to you, okay, Mom, but I have to go now because we have to go to the program because I know what you always said. And they'll say, yes, Dr. Corley said, which is kind of cool. But they need to be there. They need to be supporting each other. This one is simple to fall into, but we try not to. You can always scaffold to the next thing. If the behavior is a problem, do a reset, try to figure out what's going on. That's what we did with fourth graders, and since the beginning of January, it's working. And it's just a tightening up. We're not going to even spend the time to talk to you about interrupting my lesson. Put down a poker chip in front of the child, and everybody goes, because if you get two, you come to see admin over the dumbest stuff, and we're going to call home over the dumbest stuff because really we have more time than the teachers do to do that. Not something we want to do, but we don't want them doing it. And I caution them, don't spend any words on it because if that's part of the payoff, you don't want to be part of the payoff. You just and don't be snotty about it. Just put the chip down and move on. So they get it. There are a bunch of class clownish type folks there who I say that their Maslow is all messed up. You know Maslow, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That it goes air, water, attention on me, and all other things. It's just redesigned in a way it shouldn't be. What great teachers do for their students. After some 30 years of analyzing teaching, I have concluded that classroom teaching is perhaps the most complex, most challenging, and most demanding subtle, nuance, and frightening activity that our species has ever invented. And there's another one here about, yes, okay, what's the one that I wanted? Yeah, there's one more. Where did it go? Research, yes. Research shows that teachers make more than 1,500 decisions and 252 judgments per day. Teacher decision-making rivals that of air traffic controller. Checklists can relieve some cognitive load, providing a structure that prevents our forgetting important details. But you have to make a decision about everything from should Tommy go to the bathroom for the 4th time during your ELA lesson to do we need to take a brain break now for our kindergartners? Should we sit quietly for just a minute? Did they really get what I was talking to them about? How many didn't get it? What do I need to do to figure it out? And do I need to go back and figure it out? Wanted to read you just a little bit from the last chapter, and it's called Angels in the Classroom. And yes, I know. Okay, it's all right. Sorry. I wrote you a pass. As a longtime school principal, I'm often asked, what makes a great teacher? Having interviewed and hired hundreds of teachers over a period of 30 years, I've thought about this a lot, so there's some traits that instantly come to mind. First and foremost, great teachers have highly developed communication skills and an engaging classroom presence. They're able to expertly impart information in a palatable way. If you visit their classrooms, you'll notice them modulating their voices and physicality in order to effectively capture the attention of the group. They're great at improvisation and can make any lesson logical, fascinating, and at times even entertaining. While exceedingly articulate, such teachers are equally good at listening to students, understanding their needs and perceptions. They're highly intuitive and expertly able to, they are highly intuitive and expertly able to read the room and detect emotional and mood changes in their pupils. This ability is key since so many students are dealing with steep challenges at home or within their own minds. Doubts and insecurities can do a number on a child's self-esteem. As one insightful teacher, Jose Wilson, said, "Most of my work as a math teacher isn't even math. It's helping students believe that they can also do math." We don't talk about that enough. In addition, while teachers must express empathy and treat students compassionately, they also have to firmly maintain high standards for behavior and academic expectations in the classroom. It's a balancing act, and experienced teachers have mastered it. All in all, teachers have a huge responsibility in taking care of our children, which is why I wanted this chapter to be a love letter to them, capturing my respect and admiration for them. Let's do D. D loops from 2nd to 3rd grade. All of our classes at kindergarten first, like if I'm the kindergarten teacher, you're the 1st grade teacher, we share an office, and then we'll share students. My kindergartners will come wholesale to you as 1st graders. But during that kindergarten 1st grade year, we may have some children who bounce back and forth because of what it is that they need and who can best address them. And the assistant is shared.
What do you call that? Not looping.
No, that's not looping. You could call it multi-age. You could call it co-teaching. It's just a flexible, I don't know that there's a name for it, but the looping part happens 2nd to 3rd and 4th to 5th so that there are fewer transitions. And the only downside I've ever seen to it is when the 4th grade teachers get those 3rd grade plus students who are 4th graders. At the beginning of that time, the teachers go, they're 9 years old, they're 9 years old, they're 9 years old, because they just showed the door to the 5th graders in the loop before that. But then these folks are going to become 5th graders. And a lot of crying ensues on the last day because they're all so close to each other. And they, no, don't go, I could retain you, it'll be okay. So that part is tricky. D loops from 2nd to 3rd grade. At the end of one 3rd grade loop, a student of hers named Ian, known to all of us as much for his wit, logical reasoning, and reluctance to be pushed for his unique challenges, made an equally unique observation about his teacher. He said to her, "You're the nicest mean teacher ever." There's a lot in Ian's statement about who D is, or at least who Ian thinks she is. She sets high expectations and expects him and his classmates to reach them. That's the mean part, not letting students give anything less than their best effort. She is patient and empathetic on the road to student success because almost never do all students comprehend a given lesson the first time it is presented. The teacher then must shift gears to make the material far more digestible, back up and review it, teach bits of it via small group instruction, scaffold what students know to what they don't know, and pursue any of 15 other options. Ian also knew on some level that Dee exercised a fair degree of patience without lowering her standards whenever he pushed back against her demands, that he increased his efforts to meet them. There's a phrase for the way Dee and so many other teachers like her handle their business. She is a warm demander. She attempts to convey a positive, supportive feeling toward her students while insisting that they demonstrate their best efforts and exercise self-discipline in order to achieve at the highest levels possible. Dee is just one example of this manner of teaching. So many of our teachers and others with whom I've worked in the past, especially those who teach 2nd grade or higher, display genuine affection toward their students while expecting nothing less than their best work. The most talented teachers know their students, know their subjects, and know how to teach them. This does not mean teaching every 4th grade math student every aspect of mathematics at a 4th grade level. It is simply impossible for every 4th grader to be at 4th grade level in every facet of a given subject area. Therefore, the best teachers differentiate their instruction to meet each child at his or her level of understanding and ability to demonstrate it. That is one ingredient in the secret sauce of fine teaching. The other ingredient is truly caring about students. This leads teachers to do whatever they need to do to be the best they can be, including but not limited to participating in workshops, taking graduate courses, consulting with specialists regarding individual challenges, collaborating with team members, and participating fully in weekly professional learning community activities. I wrote about a bunch of other teachers who do lots of other wonderful things. They're angels. They're just the best, especially the folks who have stayed with it for a long period of time, no matter what the challenges are. And to be fair, our school has, on a scale of 1 to 10, probably a 6 when it comes to challenges. Schools far more on this side of the river, most of them are at 9s and 10s, because it's exacerbated by the fact that when we get teachers from out of state who want to come to Hilton Head, they might really want to come to Hilton Head, so they might come to one of the schools here, and 1 or 2 years later, they wish to go someplace that has a beach and Frosty Frog. Well-known place on Hilton Head. So with that, thank you. I'm going to say the thing that I say every day on the intercom, which is ask good questions, make good decisions, leave things better than the way you found them, especially people's hearts, and please show respect. Thank you. I can answer questions or sign books or do whatever it is Mr. Hopp says that I should be doing at this point.
Do we have questions? I thought in this audience we might. Yes.
Oh, wait. I have a question from my daughter, who is a school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, and I think you already answered it, what can we do to support our teachers,
Mm-hmm.
especially, well, as grandparents and community citizens?
Whatever school is closest to you, go by or call and say, I would like a tour if you'll let me do that. I would like to come see what's happening in the school, and I'd like to know how I could help. Being a volunteer, we have 70 United Way volunteers at our building. And the reason we have so many is because some other schools couldn't find ways to make the best use of their time. And nearly all of them are retirees, and they say, wow, this is different. This is different. You'd be amazed, you'd be pleased, I think, but especially for and grab somebody who's recalcitrant to go with you, who will be hard to convince that really good things are happening in schools.
And she also wanted to know favorite read aloud author.
Oh, gosh. I'm going to go with Cynthia Rylant because she has so many different, and whenever somebody's dog passes away, I make sure they have the Cynthia Rylant Dog Heaven book, because
Is that the one with
it's all different kinds of dogs meeting up and waiting for you. Yeah. And every book that I've ever handed out, I give it to someone and then I say, send it on to the next person. And the books that I've had that have been given back to me, you can always see the tear marks. And they're not always children tear marks, they're adults. Yeah. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
What are your thoughts on teacher training right now? The teachers who are coming out of the ones who want to go to Senior Prague or wherever once they've been there. Are they, I'm starting to, I'm a little worried because so many veterans are leaving the profession, and you learn so much from the veterans while you're in the school. Then you have a whole faction of teachers the same way you had a whole faction of students who went through COVID, so they didn't get that training or that experience. Are you finding that that's do you implement your own version of teacher training when they come?
Absolutely. There's a designed induction process that comes from the district. So there are teacher training times. I was just in a roundtable 2 days ago about how we need to change the way we do it, because it's hard to get teachers to be all in, especially after a long day, to come to those trainings after school. So now they're going to make them 4 times a year, full days. And they have the best of the best training them. They also have district mentors. They have a building mentor, and then we do induction training on site as well. We only have one induction teacher just this minute. We have pretty low turnover in our building. We're about 96% rate. We're kind of happy actually this time that 2 teachers are retiring, because we'll get to hit the transfer window for the first time in about 8 years, because once it closes, and then if somebody leaves, which happens because sometimes somebody goes to the district office, and, oh, okay, we're going to get a new teacher, which is not a terrible thing, because you have to have folks of all levels. But to your point about veterans leaving, sometimes those veterans go teach at college levels, and sometimes they're doing both things at the same time. We have a couple of teachers who are doing that, so we get the advantage of their experience when they're teaching in college. But there are things that are more tailored to state provisos and state laws now. Like everyone will be letters trained, LETTRS. It doesn't spell letters, but it's a new, not new, a proven science of reading way of going about language arts teaching. And we have a new English language arts curriculum that has just been voted in, and they let us vote. They let the teachers vote, which is good too. So there's a bunch of learning that happens together. Orton Gillingham training, most of our teachers, probably 40 of our teachers are trained in Orton Gillingham, which is a different way of teaching. And we're in the midst of interviews right now, so those questions were asked of our teachers to the incoming folks. What do you know about letters? What do you know about Orton Gillingham? What do you know about SIOP, which is Structured Instruction Observation Protocol? Good job! Wow, from the long term. For second language students, but it's good for everyone.
Are you able to get as many counselors as you would like for those students in population who are in mental health crisis?
There aren't enough outside counseling services because school counselors can only go so far. We have had to do more self-harm, harm to others protocols with our counselor and our social worker than we've ever had to do in the past. We've probably done 6 of them this year. In elementary school, that's kind of strange. And that falls to the counselor and the social worker, unless it's going to be, an outright commitment at the time.
But in-house counseling?
In-house. We are allowed 1 counselor to every 750 students.
Wow.
We're okay. Because there are those of us who, I say, have our junior counseling badge. There are others who can assist for the counselor or triage for the counselor. She's busy. She's very busy. And we have someone, she's my age, so it's like in 20 minutes she's going to retire at some point in time or another. And there is a person on staff who's a 5th grade teacher who is her understudy and getting the degree, so we will have a built-in person who understands what we do and how we do it and want to be with us and do the same kinds of things. High schools have more than 1 counselor, 3, 4 counselors. The same thing at middle schools. Now, that's going to be different district to district. States have some guidelines, but not necessarily hard and fast rules about those things. But the outside counseling is the place where when the counselor says, Mom, your son really needs to see a therapist. Yeah, well, they won't take my insurance, or they won't do this, or they won't do that. There's a new group that has been contracted by the school district that will take Medicaid, which is going to be great. So we're starting to do that. There are also some others. That Hello Hero is another one that will do on-site counseling, but most of it is via Zoom, which works for some and doesn't work for others. But the Zoom part, the only benefit I see to it is that the parents don't have to find the time to go there. That is, it can be done during the school day, and we find a time. And the social worker sits just outside the door while the child is, because for confidentiality reasons, she's not supposed to be in there, but what if he has a breakdown while he is in there, like they touch on something that upsets him? So that's the only way that can work. It's not ideal, I guess, is the last answer for that. But we keep working on it. We need a more positive question with a more positive answer, or I'll have to make something up. Yes.
I have a positive question.
Okay.
I've seen you and your students perform twice at the African American History Education Conference, and I would love for you to talk about that experience and what it means to the students to get to do that with their principal.
It's a bunch of drummers and flag people. The dance teacher and 2 other teachers are responsible for the flags. I know nothing about that. And the drummers, every place I've ever been as a principal, I've had a drum group. I am not a drummer. I can write the cadences and we can make it happen, and it's not totally square and old-fashioned. It's cool enough for them to want to play. And especially after COVID, we were the only club that could meet because you stand pretty far away from each other so you don't hurt each other. So we never had as many drummers as we did then, and our folks downtown were very good about helping me support that by making sure they all had drums. They're kid-sized, adult-like drums, bass drums, trio, quad, cymbals, and the cymbal players are all goofballs, and they love to do silly things, and we indulge that for them. But we march in the Bluffton Christmas Parade, and Foxy sits in my car. I always have a convertible, and Foxy waves, and here comes Foxy, and then here comes the group. So we manage to march. When we do a standstill performance, we're much better at that. Because marching and playing at the same time, we drop our sticks and stuff. We have people who pick up our sticks for us, give us more. And I remember explaining that to, we were doing a performance for the Teachers of the Year thing. And I play it's a double trio thing, so I can play most of the parts at the same time. And I said, please don't make fun of us if we drop our sticks. And then 3 measures in, I dropped one of my sticks. And all my colleagues just lost it. Yeah, you're the only problem. I didn't see any kid dropping a stick. Only you. But I get them. They get me. When I'm doing too many things with too many adults and it's tough work, go to drum practice, and that's pretty fabulous. And there's another little rainbow in this. There's a girl who's from Honduras. It was the weirdest thing when her dad registered another girl in the family, and he finished registering her, and then the data specialist came back to me and said, he just asked me, would it be okay if he registered her twin? Would he forget her? What's the deal? Well, she's been blind almost from birth. And we learned later she has the intellect of maybe a 6-year-old. And at this point in time, they were 10. They came to us as 4th graders. The reason for her blindness could have been avoided in a first world country. But being so far from the hospital, it was too hard for them to get back and forth for the treatments, and then there was paying for the treatments, so she didn't have them. So she will remain blind. She's not potty trained. When she came to us, she would just collapse in the hallway and cry. And that was the beginning of last year. It was determined that she should be, 18 people in this meeting, that she should get her instruction on Hilton Head, because the sight impaired instructors were housed there. They do go to other places, but her IEP required that she see the person for 90 minutes a day, broken up in 15-minute increments. Well, how do you do that if the teacher is on the other side of the bridge? It cannot happen. So I'm using that as my North Star and kind of arguing with the people about, well, how is she going to be? I mean, yes, she could be here in our special needs class, which is cross-categorical. And those of you who know anything about cross-categorical, it could be any kinds of things. Generally not autism, because there's another place for those folks. If it's severe, we do have autistic children in our school, or children with autism in our school, but not to a high level. So there may be 8, 9 children in this class, and she would need a one-on-one assistant. So she went to Hilton Head for a time, but the ride is about 35 minutes. So 35 minutes each way, and she's there, and she's getting her 15 minutes a day of how to use the stick, being introduced to that, introduced to how to do Braille. She also has 0 English. So the challenges are significant. Well, Dad was furious after a time. This is not going to work. What are we going to do? And he was sort of implying that we were saying, well, I don't want to take it. No, I don't want it. That wasn't what it was. We couldn't put together the right program so that she would get exactly what she needs. And I'm not saying she should be at a remote site for only kids who are black. That I don't think that's right either. Well, one thing led to another. We said, let's bring her back. We'll do all that we can. She loves music, absolutely loves music. Her first words were Dr. Corley, because I play an instrument at some point in time. When kids are coming in, I grab whatever instrument is close by, clarinet, flute, or whatever. At times I played the piano in the lunchroom, etc. Things really got going when she came to the summer program. There's a special needs program that was housed at our building. It usually isn't there. And we had our summer school. I had to move the grand piano to the atrium. We have this beautiful atrium where that has become our library. So think of a large triangle with books, shelves this tall, books, more books. And the center is open so the children can sit on the carpet and be read stories. Good description? Good description? Good description. Yeah. Okay. And that's where the running club meets too. That gentleman over there is part of the running club. So the carpets were all taken up, and there no children need to sit there because that's not how it's going to go. So I had the piano move there. And I'm thinking, this poor child, she has issues some days, but I just don't want to be here. And it's a special needs bus. She has a harness because if you're thinking you can't see what, you could fall out of your seat. So she comes in the harness, and now she comes in with her stick. And if she hears the piano playing, she comes right over to where she hears the piano play. Dr. Corley, piano, 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 Dr. Corley, piano. And we started playing a couple of songs. And then she perseverated on them. You are my sunshine. You are my sunshine. Well, she didn't know that there were words because I wasn't singing them. And then when I started to sing them, she just laughed and carried on. Like, where did that come from? So we started to sing. She started to sing. And any folk song you could imagine by now, we play. But I start playing in the key of C because that's easy. For those of you who know, that's no black notes. I'm just going to play on the white notes, right? Well, she'll start on E flat, just because that's how she's hearing it. So I have to go along with her, and then she laughs when I make mistakes. Now she plays just about whatever she hears. Sometimes I'll surprise her and bring the flute out. I'll start playing the piano, then I'll get up from the piano. She's playing the piano, and I'll play the flute. Flute, flute, flute. She went to we have an arrangement with the Hilton Head Symphony Orchestra, and we get to go to their concerts, and they have musicians who come to play for us. And they were performing Carmina Burana, and you probably didn't know that there's a recorder part to Carmina Burana, and recorder is one of my favorite things in the world. I still play it. My parents hated it, but it's okay. It sounds pretty nice now. Mine's a wooden one, so it sounds a little bit better. So they were saying something about. I said, "Is she going on the?" No, it would be too hard for her to do it. No, I'll go with her, and I'll bet she doesn't know the recorder part. We'll need to learn it just before we go inside. So that's what we did. Not during the bus ride, bus driver. No, that would be terrible. But we learned to play it, and then she played along with it. She was in heaven because I don't think she had ever heard an orchestra in person, and we were able to go up because if she can feel what's going on, she's much happier. So back to the drums. Tuesday and Thursday morning, just before school starts. She comes around the corner with her one-on-one, and she hears the drums playing. She jumps up and down, laughs. I have like half of a drum set up for her. So there's a cymbal there, and there's a tom, and she plays. When she first came in, now it's about 85 students playing drums. That's loud. That's a lot of drums. She does have headphones because she has some issues. There are about 4 kids in the group who have earbuds or something, because it's just too much, but that doesn't keep them from wanting to play. Their noise is okay. Everybody else's noise is not as okay for them. So when she first came, she would feel my drum, and then she'd hear somebody else's drum, and then she'd move over to where she heard the sound, and the child would look at me like, what am I supposed to do? Play off to the side, try not to hit her hands with your sticks, keep playing, but she wants to feel the vibration of it. And then she'll play as well, and she plays like it's bongos. She doesn't like sticks as much, but she doesn't miss a beat, literally. They enjoy her, she enjoys them. I do not get their attention on me at all. That's okay, because they're watching what she's doing. And when she gets it right and nobody else gets it right, they laugh. It's like, oh, gosh. And I'm watching you. I'm watching what you're doing, Dr. Corley. I didn't get it, she did. But we have a lot of fun. The drum thing is fun. And anybody who does clubs with us, they just have an extra bond. True?
Yes, very much so.
Running club is what, about 80 students? Something like that?
Not quite, but it's a great turnout. None of them want to quit. You could tell, because they know if they don't show up a couple of times, that they're under pressure. So.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we appreciate you helping.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you. That's a good note to end on.